Community and the press corps. In the coming months, I'll be announcing many updates on many important cases affecting New Mexico. But for now, I want to announce some very important reforms that my office is taking, which will be necessary when it comes to protecting children and being effective in fighting crime. I will not compromise when it comes to protecting children and victims. And I will do everything in my power within the Attorney General's office and our authority to make sure that we improve public safety in New Mexico. New Mexico is the second most dangerous state in the nation, and that's simply unacceptable. Today I would like to announce that we will be taking a targeted approach when it comes to dealing with the most high-risk and most dangerous individuals in the state of New Mexico. First, we are going to focus on ensuring that child molesters and porn peddlers do no harm to children in New Mexico. Sex offenders are inherently dangerous, should always face incarceration, and we need laws that mandate public registration to protect the public safety and the state of New Mexico. There should be no such thing as a non-public sex offender. Registration is very important when it comes to protecting children. People who also exploit child rape and profit from child rape are just as bad as child rapists and need to be treated in the same fashion. The public interest is to not only punish the perpetrators of rape of children and torture, but also we must go after those that market and profit from these heinous activities. I intend to punish the business of child victimization. You cannot watch child pornography or hurt a child when you are in the cell of a prison. Now, I will cite some examples that are relative to a recent case review that I recently conducted, and it's also a basis for why we are changing the way we combat crime in New Mexico. One example is that there are horrific videos of children being raped. Also, this one individual is as small as potentially 18 months, 18-month-old infant. Other cases that the Attorney General's office handles involve children as young as 6 forced to engage in bestiality. And we're also seeing cases where child predators record prepubescent girls in bathrooms and save these images, which are then shared online, forever re-victimizing these small children. We see sexual predators who seek children out online and show up to meet them sexually and to sexually abuse them in the borders of New Mexico. My administration will make sure these offenders are incarcerated and registered as sex offenders. I have directed my staff to continue to do a thorough case management review of pending cases in order to correct plea offers and to toughen our position as the Attorney General when it comes to protecting children. We only get one shot when it comes to protecting our children. In addition, we will be targeting violent criminals in New Mexico. As I stated earlier, we are one of the most dangerous states in the country. I'm announcing the creation of a new criminal affairs division because we're going to make sure that we put away violent criminals and that we support prosecutors throughout the state of New Mexico and law enforcement when it comes to combating crime involving the most violent criminals in New Mexico. Why is this a priority? Not only because we are the second most dangerous state in the country, but simply the Attorney General's mission requires leadership in the greatest risks affecting the community. I've already reached out to the Governor of New Mexico and many members of the legislature, and it's my commitment in this office to make sure that we collaborate with all elected officials in a bipartisan approach to make sure that we show effective results in our communities. And finally, I'm going to talk about a targeted approach to corruption. When it comes to government accountability and fraud, I will restore confidence in the prosecution and the protection of taxpayer dollars. We are a state of limited resources and limited oversight protections. I learned this firsthand being state auditor of New Mexico. But it's important that we do our best to collaborate with other officials to make sure that there is real accountability when it comes to attacking fraud and corruption, not only in the government sector, but also in the corporate and private sector. We need to move away from the mentality that fraud and embezzlement only impacts large, wealthy institutions, and we need to make sure that we understand that fraud and corruption is not a victimless crime. And further, we are changing a policy that the ability to pay restitution on behalf of a defendant should not buy that offender a better outcome when it comes to justice in New Mexico. A message needs to be sent that justice is not for sale, and it certainly will not be in my administration. Again, my office will make sure that we are enhancing and enforcing the new policy, that we will be seeking jail time for these violent offenders who are a threat to our community. Finally, I'm going to be announcing that I've already recruited some of the top law enforcement and prosecutors in the state of New Mexico to lead this new criminal affairs division. My first is the deputy of the criminal affairs, Sharon Pino. She is the former assistant attorney general in the border violence division with specialty experience in special prosecutions, and also has served as domestic violence czar in the state of New Mexico. She also has direct experience in prosecuting violence and sexual assault for the 8 northern Indian pueblos, and as a prosecutor in the 1st Judicial District, she began her career as an assistant district attorney. She's won numerous awards for her leadership in domestic violence advocacy, and I know she'll be a great, strong leader in the criminal affairs division. In addition, I made a commitment that I would be recruiting the best prosecutors throughout the state. I'm also announcing the director of my prosecutions unit, special prosecutions unit, is Clara Moran. She was assistant supervising attorney for the gangs division in the 2nd Judicial District, and has specific experience in special prosecutions as well. And she also has served as an adjunct law professor between 2008 and the fall of 2014. And finally, in addition to us being more targeted in our approach to fighting the most violent and heinous criminals in New Mexico, it's important that we maximize resources in the state of New Mexico when it comes to fighting crime. We need to be more collaborative and work more closely with the U.S. Attorney, with law enforcement authorities, and I have tasked my new Chief Counsel, John Wheeler, to be lead collaborator when it comes to establishing law enforcement partnerships across the state of New Mexico. We've already signed an agreement with the U.S. Marshal Service to improve our fugitive extradition services. His experience is more than 21 years at the Department of Public Safety and former Secretary of New Mexico Homeland Security and Emergency Management, and served as a policy advisor as well. And finally, I've already committed to many staff in the office that I will aggressively seek out better training and better resources for my prosecutors and investigators in the state of New Mexico. And I've already met with several legislative leaders and the governor to express my position that underfunding law enforcement in New Mexico will be an issue that I will specifically fight against and moving forward. And with that, I'll now take a few questions. Thank you all for being here and to cover our announcement. Thank you.
Attorney General, the New York Times had an article a few weeks ago that outside law firms are coming to New Mexico and asking your office to sue. They file suit. Are you going to continue that practice? And specifically talking about the lawsuit with the nurses. Is that a practice that will continue in your office?
I'm familiar with the article that you stated. Those issues are under review. I can tell you that we are now studying reforms to make sure that we protect the integrity of the Attorney General's jurisdiction, because it is necessary that the Attorney General be able to protect taxpayers, and I'm going to make sure that I reform any process that potentially impairs the integrity of that service.
This issue of child porn, how prevalent is that in New Mexico? How much activity of child pornography is going on here?
Well, it's pretty widespread. My concern is how damaging it is to the victim. I've met with families who have been impacted by this tragedy, and it's my position that the state needs to do a better job when it comes to punishing these offenders.
Quick follow-up on the child porn question from Steve. Do you plan to keep the ICAC unit in place? And the second part of my question is, what can you do to make sure local law enforcement follows up on those cases?
I've met with the ICAC unit. It's my intent to keep that unit and also to expand resources toward that unit. I'm very excited because I'm already discussing the needs of local law enforcement and increase the training capacities. So my hope is that we will not only increase the ICAC resources, but that we will increase our training ability to work better with local law enforcement and local prosecutors.
Moving forward with some of these worst criminals that you're talking about, are you saying that you kind of want to do away with plea deals that let them dodge jail time?
Absolutely. That's a change in policy. We're going to be tougher when it comes to supporting jail time, and we think there needs to be greater accountability in the justice system.
The Attorney General, the state police is reporting a possible shortage in officers, so are other agencies across the state. Is there anything your office can do to ask for more funding for these particular agencies?
Well, one of the reasons that we created the Criminal Affairs Division is to not only take a more targeted approach, but also to make sure that the system is more accountable as well. And if I find that there is a shortage of law enforcement resources, you can expect me to advocate and be very vocal and work collaboratively with the legislature, the governor, and local mayors.
You'll be the chairman now of the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy Board. Recently, they scaled back state-mandated training from 22 weeks to 16. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, that issue is under review too. I'm excited to serve on that board, but I will probably think it's premature for me to comment on that, but very soon we look forward to addressing those issues aggressively.
I think the last time I was in this room was Attorney General King was announcing that they were investigating the Las Cruces District Attorney's Office for destruction of records. Can you say anything about that investigation? Is it ongoing in your administration too, or what's going to happen with that?
I can't even comment yet, Steve, on that. I can assure you, though, that in this case review, my expectation is to give you updates, especially on those large cases, very soon. It would be premature for me to comment on that right now.
Any update at all on the Kerry Brandenburg case?
Same answer. As we just put this unit together, it's my expectation that we are going to apply the rule of law to all of these cases and then get you a transparent update as soon as possible.
Getting back to my child porn question, is there any figure of how many cases of child pornography have been prosecuted in New Mexico in the last year or so?
You know, I don't have that, Steve, for you. I can probably get that. We'll follow the end of the day stuff for you.
Unless, I don't know, Sharon or Clara, do you have anything to say on that?
We're in the beginning stages of compiling statistics, and we can get you that answer very soon.
You talked about kind of reviewing some of the pending cases and then changing the plea deals to maybe include jail time. Do you have an idea of how many cases that is or how long that's going to take?
You know, I don't have an end time on that. I can tell you that our review has already made some substantial impact in the decisions of our prosecutors. So I would say the best way to handle that is to follow each case as they're developing. But I can confirm to you that we have changed positions on open cases at this time.
What kind of shape is the office in right now? What did you inherit? Can you talk about that?
You know, I can tell you that the transition has been a challenge, difficult, yet very successful. And we will be making announcements on all our divisional changes very soon. But I'm very excited, and I chose to announce of the Criminal Affairs Division because it's the division for me, the division that's going to be protecting children and families. And so I thought it was most important in terms of the sense of urgency to make these decisions and get these changes made into these cases that are pending.
Anybody else? Nope. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
The immigrant community is subject to unique forms of fraud. And is that something that your office is going to keep looking at?
You know, we're concerned about our community as a whole, and we're excited that we think this division and our improvements in the advocacy areas and policy will bring justice to every and any community, regardless of wealth, background, or differences. And so we want to treat everybody and protect everyone in the same manner.